I'm often asked, what does the Bible say about God's intention for human sexuality? Well, I'm so glad when they ask that, because that's like the question that must get answered if we're to live free from sexual brokenness. Because if you understand why He made us male and female, then that gives you the wherewithal to resist the temptations that come, because you have a structured purpose for living within those parameters. You know, God's omniscience makes everything He does filled with purpose and intent. There's one thing God cannot say, and that's oops. Everything God does is full of omniscience. It's perfectly wise and has a meaning and a purpose behind it. So when He made us male and female, He did it for a reason, a very important reason. He knew all the problems it would create. I mean, look at the mess in marital relationships today. And yet He did it anyway. That must mean that the reason He did it is all the more important. You see, in Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2, He makes it very clear. We were created in God's image, male and female, for the purpose of going in heterosexual monogamous pairs, so as to symbolize the love that Christ has the church and the ultimate marriage that will take place when Christ comes for us again. You see, back in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, Eve was taken out of Adam's side. And it says there in that passage, for this reason. For what reason? Because Eve was taken out of Adam's side. For that reason, the two must become one flesh again. You see, in nature, if you pull anything apart that naturally is a one thing, it will have the natural tendency to try to go back together again and become one again. Just so, when God took Eve out of Adam's side, He set up a tendency for the two to reunite again and become one again. So that's why it says in Genesis chapter 2, for this reason, the two must become one flesh again. Why? Because Eve was taken from his side. For that reason, she must return to him and become one flesh with him again. That is a call to heterosexual monogamy. It takes the woman and the man to achieve that, and it's one woman and one man that achieves that one flesh union. Heterosexual monogamy from the beginning, found in Genesis chapters 1 and 2. Jesus reiterated this command in Matthew 19, emphasizing that the two must become one. He even repeated the passage from Genesis chapter 2. God condemns every departure from this model for what it does to society, for what it does to our bodies, and for what it does to His image in us. You see, physical sexuality is a human enactment of a greater spiritual reality, that of Christ and His church, the bridegroom and the bride. Satan wants not only the image of God in our sexuality marred, he also wants this picture of Christ and the bride marred. The sexual act in marriage is to be as much a spiritual act as it is to be a physical act. That is why the enemy bombards our minds with degrading sexual images and relegates sexuality to the realms of darkness in our thinking, where God is actually denied, feared, and ignored. In faithful monogamous marital relations, we are ingraining the pattern of intimate faithfulness into our minds and hearts and setting it as an example for the world to follow. We are bringing glory to the image of God. We are displaying the image of God on this earth through our human sexuality. And we are prefiguring the marriage that Christ will have with you and I, the bride of Christ, at the end when He returns.